Hello, welcome to Strictly Money at the News Forum, where all voices matter. I'm Saijal Patel. Ask Canadians what they perceive to be the biggest financial risk to their wealth, and most would say it's the stock market. But what if I were to tell you that it's people's cognitive biases and not managing it that's actually a bigger risk? The good news is that by learning what they are and where to apply it, you can protect your wealth. Barbara Wherry is a certified financial planner with IG Private Wealth Management, and she joins me now to run through some of the different types of personal financial risks you need to be aware of. Barbara, great to have you on.
Thank you, Saijal. Very excited to be here today.
You know, um, I discuss this a lot because I find that people's perception of risk actually runs them astray because they don't really understand how to manage that risk. But the other thing is how they self label themselves as a certain type of risk level without actually understanding what that means.
Very true. I would have to agree with you completely. Risk itself it's a multifaceted, many-layered topic, and there are many, many different types of risks. When we look at investments, for example, your point being how people label themselves, we often will perhaps only look at something that we call a risk tolerance. Maybe it's a questionnaire or a quick conversation. I've met many people over the years who will say to me, "Barb, I'm a conservative investor," for example. But then when we actually dive into it and start asking a lot more questions about the perception of risk, their experience with risk, what they believe it to be, we actually peel back the onion to find out something maybe a little different than what I might have interpreted their initial conversation to say that they're conservative. So if we look at investments, if we only look at that feeling around, volatility, the bounciness of what an investment might do, that's only one piece to it. Risk capacity, so your ability to take on risk, is another part. And your time horizon, when do you need the money? Are you taking it out all at once? Or are you taking it out over a period of time? That's another layer to it. And then we, because we're certified financial planners, also look at the overall financial plan. What are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve? What's your stability of your income, for example? So I would bring up for this has been a hard year. I mean,
Yeah,
2022 has been a hard year for a lot of
definitely.
investors, right? So it's two different sort of scenarios. Let's say you were a 50-year-old and you had money in an RSP that you're saving towards your retirement. And you said to me, "Barb, I'm worried about what my investments have done this year." I might look at you and say, "But why? You're
Yeah,
you're not you're not looking to spend all your money tomorrow. You're not retiring tomorrow. And even if you were, you're not going to spend it all on one day." So
yeah.
if you're a really well diversified basket of different types of investments, different areas of the world, different industries, you have, not just a stock portfolio or a mutual fund or a bond portfolio, but maybe you have, an insurance portfolio, you have an emergency account. All of those different things play into it versus, let's say you're a 30-year-old and you're going out to buy your first home, and everything that you've saved has to go towards that down payment. And you give me a call and you say, "Hey, Barb, so excited, we just, put in an offer to buy a house and we need all that money in 45 days." Your whole risk capacity and your time horizon is a completely different thing. So what you should be doing with your money or your investments should be completely different.
Yeah, and humans, I find tend to ignore or even over or underestimate probability when they're factoring risk management, right? So how do you coach someone through that? We have a minute until a commercial break.
Okay, so if let's say we look at investments like the stock market as an example, the reality is in every 4 years or so, markets go up, typically about three, and then they go down about one.
Yeah,
So, we can't just look in the rearview mirror and say what has happened in the past is going to happen in the future. We need to understand the fact that sometimes or most of the time it's going to go up, but there's going to be some times it goes down. So it's like that spectrum of fear and greed is to understand that just because something has done really well in the past doesn't mean it's going to continue on that route in the future. And just because another area has performed poorly, it actually might be our winner next year.
Yeah, really important, that risk management piece, right? Because, and I talk about this a lot, Barbara, that we don't know. We can't read the tea leaves. There's just too many factors determining, what will happen in the markets. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Barbara, we've been talking about risk. You talked about investment risk and how to manage it. Let's talk about a different type of risk, an external factor that's affecting everyone these days, and that's inflation, right? No doubt this is denting people's savings and probably their wealth as well, because just the central bank's reaction to it, higher rates. How do people look at risk and how do they manage it when they're going through this?
It's been a really hard year. High inflation, low returns on our investment or negative returns, mortgage interest rates going up for many. So, definitely very challenging. So, how do we manage that? So, I think one of the key things that I know I was taught at a very young age by my dad is live below your means. So, going into, every day, every year, try to make sure that we're set up so that we are saving some money all the time and that we have some cushion so that if things change, something shifts, that we have the ability to absorb that. Then we have, again, what we're doing sort of with our money. One of my challenges when I'm talking to people about risk is this feeling of what if I keep my money in a bank account or a GIC, in savings? I'm being safe. But the challenge is if inflation continues to climb, and even when it's at a low rate, our purchasing power goes down every year. So it
Right.
actually challenges that's its own kind of risk. Sitting on money and cash and not having it grow faster than inflation is a real problem.
Yeah, and I think people see that as being safe, but I always say, you risk on the other side of not being able to meet your goals and not being able to save the way, you can save, and then something like this happens and you've depleted yourself. The other one, Barbara, is that humans tend to over or underestimate their probability when it comes to assessing risk. And what I mean by that is when it comes to insurance, the
Mm.
probability of something happened to them. And I see this a lot. A lot of people ignore life insurance, disability insurance because they just don't think they need it.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, none of us want to think about getting sick, getting disabled, losing a loved one, or not being there for our family because we're gone. So it's a difficult thing to think about and talk about, but it is honestly, it's a massive risk. Truly, our greatest asset is actually our ability to earn an income.
Yeah.
And if you look at the statistics, about 1 in 2 of us will become disabled for a period of 90 days or more during our working years. In our lifetime, 1 in 2 men or 1 in 2.2 women have a chance of developing cancer. Those are pretty staggering statistics. Now, the good news is with medical breakthroughs and fantastic resources when it comes to health, we're actually living a lot longer. So many of us would perhaps automatically think about life insurance to protect our family, but in fact, critical illness insurance and disability insurance, I think, actually play into a financial plan many more times or much more often than life
Hmm.
insurance because statistically we have a much greater chance of living, but we know that the death is something we can't undo, right?
Yeah.
So getting sick and blowing up our retirement savings, that might be reversible or might be fixable over time, but death is not. So, in a true financial plan, we need to take a look at those risks and try to mitigate them and see if there's ways that we can push that risk onto, say, an insurance company to make sure that we can be there to protect ourselves and our families.
We only have 45 seconds left until the commercial break, but I very important too is no, you have to actually crunch the numbers, don't you, Barbara? Because
Yeah.
some people say, well, I have this type of insurance with my company through a group benefit. And most often than not, it's not enough.
Absolutely. We work primarily with executives, business owners, and family of wealth. And when we go through that process of calculating, for example, the disability coverage, it is definitely very frequent that an executive is highly underinsured with their group plan. So it is important to take a look at your own unique family circumstances and make sure that you actually understand the numbers and understand your coverage.
Okay. Really appreciate you coming on and your insights. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Barbara Wherry of IG Private Wealth Management.